Yo, 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 what's going on? It's your friendly neighborhood knucklehead, and this is vlog number 4. Given a bit of a 2-week update, and in this video, I am going to talk a little bit more about background leading up to this new process that I've been on, this new journey that I've started, how I'm doing now, and hopefully what's going to happen in the future, past, present, future. That's what the process is. That's what the healing journey is for me. And it started in I guess last year, 2022, and especially the end of last year. I was not myself. I was living in a really stressful state, and at the end of 2022, I found myself exiting a relationship and a really big life change, and exiting a relationship and exiting my living situation. So I had to pick myself up and put myself back together in more ways than one. And from living in such a stressful state in 2022, it opened a lot of wounds for me, especially how it resulted in ending that relationship. And those open wounds went a lot deeper than just breaking up with somebody. It went deeper to my trauma response level. And I'm going to put up a chart here to sort of look at, your trauma response. If you know what it even has the personality types here. If you've ever taken a personality test, you'll know that it could coincide with these trauma responses. And my personality is INFJ, so is a little bit flight and fawn. Fawning would be my trauma response. And that's sort of where I found myself at the end of 2022. I was in a fawning state. I was codependent. I was just overwhelmed and just in a state of panic. And that's where I was even exiting that relationship and exiting that living situation. I was just in a state of panic, and I needed to figure out a way to settle myself down, settle my body down, settle my mind down. And that's why in the last video I talked about the tools that I picked up to start healing. And that was what I started doing right at the end of 2022 into 2023 here. Is I was able, through ferociously calling my health insurance and even trying BetterHelp for a week, I needed to talk to somebody professional to make sure that I was going to go through the next steps of healing in the right ways. Having somebody to keep me accountable, having somebody to know what's healthy, what's not healthy, what might not be what it seems in terms of behavior patterns. And even also in the last video, I talked about the external versus the internal. So when we leave a relationship, a lot of times we can look at what has happened in the relationship externally, whether that's memories or whatever happened. You just remember kind of what happened. But your role in what happened and the way you responded to situations, that is all internal. And a part of this process of reclaiming myself and reevaluating who I am is also understanding that what happened externally and who you were with and what the situation was is only a reflection of where you are inside yourself. And that is kind of a big, tough pill to swallow for some people. And it's also just it's something that's conceptually hard to digest. Like, what you're telling me, I brought this on myself. Well, yeah, that's kind of what it is. And you only have control of yourself. You don't have control over those external situations. So a big part in this healing process was taking responsibility for what I've been doing and who I became and what I do going forward. So a part of that process is obviously healing and forgiving myself internally, and that was what was calming my body down. And how when I was in a state of panic, it was just my therapist and everybody I talked to was just like, you need to calm down, you need to heal yourself, you need to do things that make you feel good, like feel good about yourself, like just self-care it right now because it's so fresh and the wounds are wide open and it's just all over the place, right? So that's what it started with, is getting those tools, those right tools. And the first one was therapy. And the next one, obviously meditation, I'll get into that. But the first one was therapy, making sure I can get like a proper diagnosis and what I'm going to do going forward. Because at that point I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to need to get put on medication? Because I was in such a state of panic and nausea and just really low, grief, shame, guilt, all of those emotions was just making me distraught at the end of 2022. So getting my new therapist, was the first thing to really turn it around for me, or to help me turn it around for myself. In the past, the therapist that I have, we were always working externally. So we were looking at how I was responding to things, and we were looking at what my behavior patterns were, and it was just all about managing myself in certain situations, right? Letting go of, well, not even letting go, but just managing my compulsions, managing overthinking, managing trying to overachieve, and managing being anxious. All of those things were like apparently an external behavior pattern and a result of what was actually internal, which my new therapist was able to recognize and even diagnose me with post-traumatic stress disorder. So that means, to bring back our trauma chart, post-traumatic stress disorder is just basically being in a state of trauma, and your trauma response is just overriding your life. And through my high stress leaving that relationship, my trauma response was, I was just in a state of fawning and just in a state of panic. It was just too much. And now when you think about trauma, this wasn't a term in my time that was used the way it's used now, where something had to be really traumatic in order to be considered trauma. At least that's how I understood it, right? Like near-death experiences, real insane abuse stories or something like that, like just really things that are far out there that would be like in the news, right? But really, when you boil it down to like the definition, I believe, of trauma, it's really how your nervous system and how your body responds to the situation. So whatever event that's traumatic, that's the external. What you internalize is how your body responds to it. And if that happens to you early on in childhood, how you respond to it, that begins to be your go-to in high stress environments. And so that just sort of cycles on and on until you realize, like, why am I doing this? What is going on? And a lot of times that's why therapy is going to help you understand that. And also when you're able to recognize it, and like I talked about in the last vlog, you have awareness, then you can start moving in the right directions and move into progress and move into treatment and what to do about it, right? And especially if you're in a relationship or you're working with a partner, like how you're able to work with each other's trauma responses in high stress situations, or just arguments, or just even basic things like just not seeing eye to eye on something. And that goes down to like what triggers are and things like that, but I don't want to go too deep into that. But that was my understanding, and that's where I was ending 2022 with, where I was in a state of trauma response. I accepted the fact that I needed to heal what was going on inside me, and what was happening was an external result of what was going on internally. So the next steps were to heal and to forgive and to let go. And I touched on this in the last vlog as well. Letting go, very tough for me, especially in those states of trauma responses. Letting go, like, because when you're overthinking, you're like, oh my God, should I have done this? Should I have done that? And it just keeps you down, and you have to, like, I had to understand and put some things into place to help me let go of what had happened. So moving along now in the past 2 weeks, still doing the therapy and still working with the therapist and talking out loud and thinking out loud, and even keeping her up to date on the other side of what I've been doing to heal, which is the meditations and the letting go, and watching a more spiritual part of that kind of process of healing. And now the spirituality and the clinical psychology, they're two sides of the same coin in my understanding, because they both talk about the same things in different ways, using different terms, different vocabularies. And that's just been my understanding and my research in trying to tackle this healing journey or healing situation, like what things to put in place, right? So like I talked about last time, the first person I resonated with was Aaron Doughty, and seeing his videos on letting go. And I think there was a guy, I think his name was Clark Kingsley, something like that. There was just another guy who had another great video on letting go if you're struggling with that. But when I committed to Aaron Doughty, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna hear this out, I'm gonna try this challenge, I'm gonna embrace this side of healing, which is meditation, vibrations, spirituality, which I had no prior experience with, not really religious, right? Just kind of going about my day, task to task, right? And so this was a conscious decision. Once I was starting to let go of my past, I was also trying to let go of ego, trying to let go of future outcomes, trying to let go of even dangerous hope that I've had, where you're holding on to hope, and hope, you're hoping, you're wishing. And when you're holding on to it, it's like this, I don't have control over this. So why am I holding on to it? And then letting go of even hope and what you're wishing for is also, from the future, is also keeping you more in the present. So it wasn't just about letting go of what happened in the past and who I was in the past and letting go of my trauma response. It was also letting go of all of the hope and all of the snapshots or dream situations or daydreams or future plans, like all of the things that I had lined up in the future, and also letting go of the pressure that I put on myself to overachieve and to like make certain things happen that I don't have control over. So the progress that I've made in the past 2 weeks, the first thing I started with was calculating what my vibration was. And I'm going to put right up here again another graphic, and this is the Hawkins chart and scale of consciousness and vibration. And this chart, and you can go to whatsmyvibration.com or Google what is my vibration, and there's a bunch of different like quizzes. And again, these were things, I don't know how valid they were. It's like, what do I do? But again, I'm just going with it here, because at some point with life, you have to just try something, and if it doesn't work, all right, fuck it, I learned from that, I'll move on to something else, right? So I'm just jumping straight into this, because a lot of what Aaron said was making sense, and he had a similar codependent trauma response, and he had a similar upbringing with his childhood. So I was like, all right, well, let's see what this guy's figured out and give it a shot, see if it works for me. And so I calculated my vibration. At this point, at the end of the year, working with therapy, I had calmed down a little bit. I was putting myself back together. So I was in the 300 level, which was in like the creative energy. I calibrated as a creator. I think I was at the 300, 350, like I was at the acceptance, willingness. I want to get up there. Like, I want to heal. I want to do things the right way. I want to be a healthier version. I want to be my best self, right? I want to be who I was meant to be. So I am willing. And that's where I was in a state of willing. And the first thing that actually Aaron emailed me in his email list or whatever was the 21-day Raise Your Vibration Challenge. And now that's what I've been doing for 2 weeks. And the first week, it was like eureka moments. Tears down my eyes, shaking, actually vibrating. And it was just sensations that I had never felt before. And I was reliving and thinking about things that I haven't thought about in a long time. I was picturing myself when I was younger and forgiving myself and just doing all types of things were going through my head. And I was also allowing myself to think those thoughts. I was trying to stay focused on the meditation, trying to stay focused on it, but also allowing myself to think and feel the way that the meditation was pushing me to do so. And it wasn't about trying to control the thoughts or trying to control the feelings. It was letting them flow through me and holding on to them and letting them go. Rather than, oh, this is nice, I'm gonna hold on to this, and oh my god, this is icky, get this one away from me, right? And through just letting it go, the first week, like I said, it was groundbreaking. And I was like, okay, this is working. I feel different. And I did this every morning, and I still am doing this every morning. Now, week 2 is when it started. Obviously it's starting to get repetitive, so it didn't have the same effect. And at first it not only it didn't have the same effect like on my body and in my mind, but also I was having trouble staying focused. I was really thinking about other things, and in doing that I was like, I don't know if I should be letting this many thoughts flow through me, because at some point I was not even sure, wait, what's going on in this meditation, right? I had started zoning out because I had heard it so much, and at first I was kind of like, oh no, am I losing momentum? Are the wheels falling off the wagon? But no, I think it was more about I was getting to a point, or I was hitting the ceiling of this meditation. Like, this meditation was bringing me to the vibration that it could. And now I needed to do other things and build off of that. So now, and as the second week went on, I started doing other meditations, started doing other videos along with that one. And then I started having more success. I started doing meditations about law of attraction and healing and your future self, and bringing the version of you that you want to exist from the future into the present. So if you want have magnetic energy, if you want to be up there and feel love, like bring it into the present. Feel the love now. Have the energy now. Be the person you want to be in the future now. What would it, and it was even challenging, some of the meditations were even challenging me, like what would it feel like if you were in the place that you are trying to be? What would it feel like if you were in the place that you're trying to be? Think about what it would feel like. Imagine yourself in your dream scenario. I thought about in Happy Gilmore, like go to your happy place, right? So, and the way you feel in that happy place, and it's like, okay, well, feel that now. What's stopping you from bringing that version of you into the present? And that's where I've been getting to now. So now it's not only about recognizing the past and all that. To recap, we had some background stuff and recovering from that, healing, forgiving, and then working in the present about bringing that future self and bringing your best self, or bringing my best self, into what's happening right now. And that's been 2 weeks into the year here, and I think the progress is just I'm always looking ahead. That's just the nature of who I am. But now I'm sitting with the progress and looking back. I'm also keeping multiple notebooks of what I have. One notebook of what I'm doing. I have one notebook of journaling where my head is at, and then I have another notebook of like therapy style stuff, where it's therapy worksheets, trauma worksheets, automatic thought, trigger worksheets, like just writing things out and seeing the things that I was writing a month ago versus the things that I'm writing now. It's just unbelievable. So definitely getting somewhere, obviously, with the therapy, and definitely getting somewhere with the meditations and the videos. So that's what's helping me on this healing journey. If you have something to share, let me know. If you're looking for a similar kind of healing journey, this is what I recommend so far. So thanks for checking me out, and we'll see how it goes next week.